All right, folks, this is it. Why you're still single. I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you what you can do about it. So, here's some lies you've been told your whole life. Maybe you've heard these from the media, your friends, your family. Just be yourself, and you'll find that special someone. Everyone has a special someone out there for them. Or when you least expect it, that's when he or she will show up. And you think, well, then they should have showed up by now because I certainly wasn't expecting it. And then this is my biggest pet peeve as a Christian, hearing people say, just wait on God's timing. This is what Christians love to tell one another when they have nothing insightful to say but want to seem helpful. And the reality is that God doesn't promise you that you're going to get married. So what exactly are you waiting for? So the result is you are searching, you're waiting, you're confused, you're frustrated, and some of you think you are running out of time or you have run out of time. You've missed the boat. As a result of your frustration, you start blaming others. You start blaming other people, you start blaming God, you start blaming society, you start blaming bad luck. Those of you who watch YouTube videos on the current dating scene, the current Western dating scene, for example, I'm sure you've seen the many videos either blaming feminism or misogyny or some current ideology, blue pill, black pill, red pill, etc., or maybe blaming sexual promiscuity or the widening ideological gap between men and women. People saying that all of these things have ruined the dating market. Well, the truth is that all of those things do play an important role in why the dating market is so difficult right now. Absolutely. And we'll talk about that more in future videos. I'm not saying that that's not true, but you can't just stop there. Another one I hear a lot is blaming dating app companies. This kind of idea that there's some conspiracy just to keep us on the apps, just to keep us swiping, making money, when the reality is, and some people don't want to hear this, especially some guys, dating apps work just fine. They do exactly what they claim to do. And if you're a good looking guy, you'll get dates. If you're a good looking guy, you'll get dates. But if you're an average looking guy, yeah, they're an absolute grind. And there's nothing really the dating app company can do to change that. How about this? God must want me to be single, or God must be punishing me. This is the direction a lot of Christians go. Like I said earlier, God doesn't promise you marriage, but he also doesn't promise you singleness. So you can't conclude that. And if you've concluded that God is punishing you, well, you've just gone down the path of legalism. The reality is that much more sinful people than you have gotten married and probably even had successful marriages. So if your response is to start looking through your life and finding some particular area of sin that you need to root out and then God is going to bless you, oh, you're probably going to be disappointed. And of course, there are some people with red flags that need to be dealt with, areas they need to work on. I'm not denying that. But I see some Christian dating content that's basically saying until you become a man of a certain amount of character that can attract a woman who wants that character, then God isn't going to let you have that woman. And the truth is, you're always going to be a sinner. You're never going to become perfect. You're always going to have some area of struggle. So if you're waiting to get all of your I's dotted and T's crossed, then yeah, you're never going to get married. How about I'm just so unlucky, or I'm the catch that got away, or I fell through the cracks. That's what some people who are convinced they're very high value will tell themselves because they just cannot fathom why they might be single. So here's the actual reasons you are single, and at least one of these is going to apply. Maybe two, maybe all three. First of all, you are not in a place where you are valued or you have good options. Two really classic examples of that are being in a place where no one else shares your worldview. So, for example, on the Christian dating subreddit that I'm involved in, I'll see someone wander in from a province in India and basically say, I am the only Christian in my entire province that's 22 years old. I believe you. You may very well be the only Christian in your entire province, and it's going to be really difficult dating there. So, of course, those people are going to want to get out of that area or bring someone there, which is highly unlikely. But anyway, it's a tough situation. And that's an extreme example. A more common example for Westerners, people in the US or Europe or Canada, maybe Australia, is you're just in the middle of nowhere. You're in some podunk town where nobody your age resides, and yeah, you're gonna have a terrible time. Next is you are not searching hard enough or long enough. And when I say hard enough, let me put it this way. If you are an average looking man, so on my scale, that'd be a 4 to 6 out of 10. And yeah, looks are more objective than we want to make them out to be. So we'll talk about looks ratings later. If you want to get a looks rating from me, you can absolutely do that. It's good data to have. If you are an average looking man and you want to find a high value spouse, even if you're in a city, a place with lots of options, you can expect it to feel like a part-time job. It is a lot of work. It is a lot of effort. You can't just throw a profile up on an app or two, look around your church. Is there anyone who's my age? Go to the occasional social event. No. It's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to feel like a grind. It's going to feel tedious, but you're going to have to be very intentional about it. And then also, if you just haven't been searching long enough, maybe you do have a good strategy in place, but you've only been doing it for a few weeks or a month. Well, that's not long at all. So another type of forum post I'll see on Christian dating is like an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old say, I'm not in a relationship yet. Well, you've probably not been searching long, and you probably shouldn't be searching now anyway. I mean, I'm of the opinion that men at least should probably wait till their mid-20s to seriously start trying to find a wife. Women, I think, can do so earlier. But yeah, if you haven't been searching long, then okay, that's not surprising. Generally, I'd recommend guys and women be on the dating scene at least a year, maybe 2 years. So you have to keep in mind that some amount of patience and duration is appropriate. And then lastly, you are not attractive enough to, attract. No, actually, that makes sense. You are not attractive enough to the kind of person you want to attract. And I'm not just talking about physical attraction here. I'm talking about just holistically. What do you bring to the table? What is your dating market value? If you want to boil down to numbers, which I don't think dating market value can be classified as a number really, but if you're a 4 and you're trying to attract a 6, eventually you got to wake up to the disconnect. Otherwise, you're going to have to attract or throw such a wide net that, you might get that person out there somewhere who's willing to make an exception for you, or you have some kind of niche appeal to them, whatever. So this is where a lot of people fall, people who are already in cities, people who have been putting in a pretty hard search, but they keep complaining, I'm still single, I can't find anyone. At some point, you got to be able to honestly assess whether your standards are too high. So here's the brutal truth. If you're not willing to change or cannot change, then you need to come to peace with being single for a long time or possibly forever. And that's something you won't hear a lot of other dating coaches, or I hate to use the word guru, but you know what I mean. Gurus on this topic say, very rarely are they going to say, hey, maybe you're just going to be single. Instead, they want to sell you the program. They want to tickle your ears, tell you something that'll make you feel encouraged and happy. Obviously, I want to be encouraging. But the reality is that some people need to be told, after their situation is analyzed, some people need to be told, this is unrealistic, this is unfeasible, this is not going to happen. You need to either come to peace with that or you need to get radical. So, what's the solution to all of this? If you've decided you are going to change, like if you've decided, yes, I am going to get married, I am going to find a long-term relationship, you need to start off by honestly assessing your deficiencies. And maybe you can't. Maybe you're not able to do that. So you're going to have to ask someone else. And maybe your friends or family aren't going to be able to honestly assess your deficiencies, or maybe they're going to know your deficiencies, but they're not going to be honest with you. And that's a major, major problem with talking to friends and family about, let's say, something like looks. If you ask your friend how good looking you are, oh, you're a 7 out of 10. Oh, you're an 8 out of 10. You're a 9. Are you? Are you really? Well, because your results don't seem to match you being a 7 or an 8 or a 9 out of 10. So that's where hiring somebody third party is very helpful. And I do offer paid coaching, but also if you want a quick free analysis, go down in the description, fill out my intake form. I will help you for free, because I view this partly as just a ministry, something I want to do to help people, and I will shoot straight with you. Second, after you've assessed your deficiencies, here is the three-pronged dating strategy I recommend. I'm not claiming that this is original to me. This is just how I articulate what is probably a lot of wisdom put together. First of all, you need, and by the way, this is just the inverse of the 3 reasons I just gave for why you're still single. You need to, first of all, be where you're valued and you have options. And a lot of times that's going to be moving to a place that has a higher population or to a place that shares your values. And it doesn't have to be on such a large level. It could also mean just something like changing friend groups or social groups, or changing churches, or changing where you're searching in apps, things like that. Just changing the location you're targeting. I'm not saying that everybody just has to move. Don't get me wrong. Next, you need to cast a wide net. As I mentioned earlier, this can feel like a part-time job if you're average looking or below average looking. So casting a wide net, that is going to include much more than dating apps. That could also be approaching people. It could be going to singles events. It could be talking to friends and family, trying to kind of recruit them, get them to help you out, find suitable matches for you. Also just, recreational leagues, getting involved in hobbies and activities that have co-ed groups. So lots of different ways, lots of different avenues you can explore. And I always advocate that you do many of them at a time. Don't just do dating apps. Don't just look at your church. The people who do that usually end up very frustrated. And then lastly, you need to continuously self-improve. And I have a very detailed self-improvement guide that I've linked to down in the description. You can check out. Self-improvement is such a vast topic. I will say that when it comes to dating, I am a believer that looks is the primary driver of sexual attraction, which is very key to marriage and relationships, of course. So a lot of my self-improvement does focus on physical self-improvement, but it also talks about finances. It talks about social skills, things like that. And then lastly, this is important. This is why I strongly recommend that someone, whether you're a man or a woman, you don't just marry or enter into a long-term relationship with the first person who reciprocates. That's why I think you should give it some time. Collecting data and iterating. This is how you eventually understand your peak of what you're able to attract. And the reason you want to, I mean, it's obvious. I'll just state the obvious here. You want to try to attract your peak potential, not only because it's, probably going to make you happier to be matched with someone who's checking off all your boxes, who's bringing a lot of value to the table, but then also because you're not going to have grass is greener syndrome. You're not going to be wondering in the back of your mind, could I have done better? That's no fun. And that's something that I have definitely observed in people who dated, just one person or two people and then got married. They didn't give themselves time to explore. So even as a Christian who believes in intentional dating and dating to marry, I do still believe in exploratory dating. You can date in order to understand more about yourself, what you want, who you're able to attract. And maybe you will meet your spouse while doing that kind of dating, but not every date has to be entered with the mindset of, I am definitely going to marry that person as long as they check off a few boxes. You're allowed to go on dates to explore and to get a better understanding of what you want. So this is the solution. And then I'm going to give you a personal example. Might as well use myself as an example, right? I've used this strategy twice in my life, and it's given me great results both times. First is in my early 20s. And I'm not going to go through my life story. Although if you do want to hear all of these personal examples, if you want to hear them in much more depth at some point, let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to share all of the tidbits and nuggets of wisdom I kind of gained during that time. But anyway, suffice to say, in my early 20s, I was pretty awful with women, and I was very skinny. So I was getting friend zoned by the women that I was trying to attract, and I finally realized I am not attractive to the women that I find attractive. I'd also been raised in a small town. I went to a college that was in a small town, and I decided after I graduated from college age 23, I decided I'm going to self-improve and I'm going to move to a big city. So I wasn't thinking in really intentional terms, this three-pronged dating strategy. It wasn't like, okay, 1, I'll do this, 2, I'll do this, 3, I'll do this. Just, naturally, I think a lot of people are going to do this. I'm just saying that this is an articulation of what is probably obvious to a lot of people. So what did I do as far as the first prong of this pitchfork goes? Be where you're valued and have options. Well, I moved to Cincinnati. Why did I move to Cincinnati? Well, I had a lot of friends there because it was pretty close to the college I graduated from. But also, 2 other important facts about Cincinnati. Cincinnati is in the Midwest. I'm more conservative. There's a lot of conservative Christians in the Midwest. So it just makes sense. Go to this place where you will be valued. And then having options. Well, cool fact about Cincinnati, it is actually within a day's drive of over 40% of the US population. So even if I did end up in a long distance relationship, there's a pretty good chance that they would be within a reasonable driving distance. And that's actually what happened. So moved to Cincinnati, and then I casted a wide net. I was in a church at first that I was going to for theological reasons that kind of fit me hand in glove. But pretty soon I realized this was a bad idea. I was in a suburb. Yeah, that's right. I should mention that. I wasn't living right in the heart of Cincinnati. I was living in a suburb, and that's really what you want. You want to be within 30 minutes of a city. You don't have to be right smack downtown. But the church I was going to, it was a typical suburban church where, young single people weren't there. It was just the newly marrieds and the married with a family and older people. So I pretty quickly realized that was not going to be a church where I was going to find a wife. So I switched churches to a church that was much closer to downtown Cincinnati. That was a great decision. I met a ton of awesome people there. And there was a great kind of community group associated with it that had lots of young people. So I highly advocate people switching churches if they need to. A lot of Christians feel guilty doing that. They think it's like improper or something like that, but I don't agree with that mindset at all. Marriage is absolutely worth pursuing, and what better place to pursue a spouse than in church? So go to a church that has options. This church I was going to, it was wasn't exactly in the denomination I was in, but I still liked it a lot. It was still theologically sound. One of my roommates was going to a mega church. Mega churches weren't my cup of tea, so I wasn't going to dip that far, we'll say. But he ended up meeting his wife at a mega church, and I also still went to speed dating events at some nearby mega churches, and those were a ton of fun. I really enjoyed those, so I fully advocate going to singles events in your area, even if they're not in your immediate social circle or whatever. Then I also, my roommates and I, we would do, because I was with two other single guys, we would do dinner parties. We all liked cooking, we liked hosting. We would invite friends over. We'd invite women, that we had met through various functions over at church and whatnot. That was great. Also, I had a bunch of friends in the area. So if I had a friend who was married and I knew his wife was attractive, I would invite them over for dinner or go out to dinner with them. And I'd basically say to them, "Hey, I'm in the market. Do you know of anyone? Do you have any friends?" So it makes sense, right? Here's a woman who is attractive. She's educated. She's a Christian. I want to marry someone like her. She probably has friends who are like her. So why not ask women like that for help? And then also I was on one dating app. It was a pretty niche dating app for certain types of Protestants. I'm not even going to say the name. I ended up meeting the woman I would marry on that dating app, surprisingly, because I was doing all of these in-person kind of social activities in hopes of finding a wife. I wasn't super keen on finding my wife through the internet, but that's what ended up happening. So we were married 10 years. Long story there, sad story. Obviously, I'm not going to go into that. But then I was 37. And yeah, once I was divorced and kind of back in the singles market again, I waited a year before I started dating. And then I started applying this strategy again. And I'll talk about self-improvement in a little bit from the previous section, tied into this section in a second. But in my late 30s, basically, it was like, all right, well, I'm a divorced dad. This is going to be really difficult. If I stuck with the same strategy, but I used the same general strategy, but I applied it differently. So let's start with the cast a wide net section. Where I am in life right now, or the past 2 years, it is not possible for me to be involved in a bunch of in-person events with singles. Just absolutely not possible with the businesses I run and things I have going on, children, whatnot. So I really had to turn my attention to the internet, dating apps, Facebook groups, subreddits. I casted a very wide net across all those. I used a lot of dating apps, a lot of Facebook groups, a lot of subreddits. I also did a little bit of cold approaching at my gym. That's really the only time of the day I get out most days is when I go to the gym. And so yeah, I did a little bit of cold approaching there, but that was pretty minor. Be where you're valued and you have options. I'm in the Pacific Northwest. That's not like the Midwest. As I mentioned earlier, Midwest has a lot of conservative Christians. The Pacific Northwest, not as much. It's also just a much lower population out here compared to Cincinnati. So the chances of me finding someone who checks off most of my boxes in the Pacific Northwest is quite low, and I don't really have the option of moving. So that means I need somebody to move to me and, to where I am. Basically, after about 6 months of trying to date locally, it started to become increasingly obvious that I should seriously consider marrying someone overseas. And this has pros and cons. Absolutely, this is not a route I recommend that everyone take, or especially men. But for me, it made a lot of sense. So I started talking, especially through Reddit and Facebook. I started talking to a lot of women from Brazil, Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, Kenya. I was really impressed with them. I could definitely tell that my dating market value was higher in those regions, for a combination of just, America is regarded highly there. They perceive Americans as wealthier, and we are, of course. I'm not going to deny that the financial factor doesn't play in. It absolutely does. But also, most of those regions consider tall white men to be attractive. So, I'm a tall white man. So play to your strengths and go to where you're valued. And I ended up settling on the Philippines as the place I wanted to focus my search. I ended up visiting the Philippines last month. I'll talk a lot more about the whole concept of dating overseas, passport bro type stuff. But this approach worked for me. Not going to work for everyone, but this is where I ended up going. And let me also say then, on the topic of self-improvement, both times I focused on, both in my early 20s and the past 2 years, I focused my self-improvement heavily on looks. So I'm just going to show you some examples. This is me when I was 17, I think. Teenager. I was 6'2", 6'3", very skinny, 145 pounds. That's how much I weighed when I entered college. And then when I was 23, I think I was still like 155 or 160. But as I mentioned, I was getting friend zoned, and I knew part of it was due to looks. So I started lifting, started putting on weight. And then I'm not going to say this is some big glow up or anything, but this is me at about 185, 190. And I got a lot more interest from women. It worked out really well. I got a lot of compliments from women who had not seen me since college. And I even, one of the most beautiful women I dated at that time, when I was like 25, she saw pictures of me from college, and she just told me bluntly, I would not have dated you. I would not date you if you still looked like that. So for people who say looks don't matter, nope, absolute nonsense. Looks absolutely matter. Okay, so that was my early 20s, my little glow up. And then when I got married, of course, marriage can have a de-beautifying effect on people. So this was me. This is an awful picture of me for numerous reasons. This was right after my son was born. So I'm actually holding my son in that picture. So yeah, I had not slept in a while. My hair is a complete disaster, all that. But anyway, you can tell that I've put on weight. I'm probably at almost 25% body fat. Definitely not looking my best. I kind of laugh when I see this picture now. Anyway, here's a picture of me at a work conference when I was maybe early 30s, 32, 33. You can see I'm a little bit of pudge there. Yeah, probably 25% body fat. And yeah, my standards of what I want to attract in a wife now in my late 30s, I want to marry someone younger than me. I gotta be firing on all cylinders. I can't be fooling around in the looks department. So it's important that I looks max as much as possible, and that's what I've tried to do over the past 2 years. Tried to look as young as possible. I've implemented a regular skincare routine. I've really tried to drop my body fat and then kind of go from what I would call skinny fat to skinny fit. So this is me. This was me back in the fall. I'm still on the skinny side, and that's more genetics. Well, you saw the picture of me when I was 17. I am not naturally a muscle building person, but still, it's worked out great. I've gotten a lot of compliments, and yeah, and also you can just see now, even in the camera, where my body fat is at. I'm at about 14% right now, maybe 15%. My abs are slightly visible, that kind of thing. And it's helped a lot. So both times the results have come in. Both times I have applied this 3-point strategy and the results have come in. My early 20s, I went from getting friend zoned consistently to dating really beautiful women that I considered high value. And then likewise, in the past year, I have dated a ton of fantastic women and been able to, even if not dated, just online, been able to attract a lot of women that I would consider very high value. And so I'm quite happy with my results, both in my 20s and now. And right now, I'll say that I have complete peace about my dating situation. I am fully convinced that I'll be able to be married to a very high value woman in the next 2, 3, 4 years. I have no concern about it because I've applied this strategy. I've applied it consistently. I've iterated, learned from my mistakes. So if you're hearing this and you think, man, I want that to be me as well. I want to have peace about my dating situation. Maybe you don't want to get married right now. That's fine. You just want to have peace about your dating situation. You want to know that when you go out in the dating market, you're going to have high quality options. You're not going to feel like you're settling. You're not going to feel like you're just going to have to go with the first person who finally reciprocates interest and just barely checks off enough of your boxes. No, you want to feel high value, and that's going to come from a good dating strategy. So if you want help, I can absolutely help you. So if you go to the description, fill out the intake form. It is going to take you about 20 to 30 minutes to fill out. I'm not the type of dating coach that's just going to get you on a phone call. Hey, what's up? Oh, okay, that's too bad. Buy my program. No, I'm going to analyze your situation in great depth. And again, if you just want a quick free analysis, I'll do that for you. Absolutely. I'll just send you a paragraph with your looks rating if you want it. Just a quick description of my expectation for you in the current dating market, and then maybe the single biggest change I think you need to make to see better results in your current dating market. I'm willing to do that for you. Otherwise, if you want to go with something more in depth, and if you're willing to pay me, you can see the prices. They're really inexpensive, really, really inexpensive. So check them out. But I'm going to give you basically this full report, this full dating, your own personalized assessment and dating strategy guide. So you know exactly what to do in the short, medium, and long term. I'm going to tell you your dating market value relative to who you're trying to attract. So that way we can understand the feasibility of your dating goals. And then what changes are you going to need to make to hit your dating goals? And if your dating goals are not realistic, again, I'm going to tell you that. And then I'm also going to give you a sense of what I think you can possibly achieve if you implement the strategy guide I give you. So I want you to know what to expect. I like to give advice in a way that you are able to predict the future and know where to go and aren't just left spinning your wheels. I'd say I have a pretty good track record too. I've helped hundreds of men and women already through the Our Christian Dating subreddit. You can check out the link below for testimonials. Those were not testimonials I asked for. Those are people who just on their own wrote to me, messaged me, left a comment, whatever. And then perhaps the most notable way I've helped people is I know that my recommendations have resulted in at least 3 marriages. No joke. I personally know 3 couples. If you were to ask them for their dating story, they would mention me. So if you enjoyed this video, leave a comment, like it, subscribe, pass it on to a friend that you think could also benefit from it. And I hope to talk to you soon, and we'll see you in the next video.